Hey there, brave hearts, urbanites, and Coach Mad Hatters. Greetings and salutations, mahogany ancestors, gods and goddesses of divine trifecta and intervention. Me and my fellow brave hearts, urbanites, and Coach Mad Hatters have joined along this journey into heartfulness. Please ignite and activate our clarity plus curiosity so that we may know the truth by the way that it feels, especially when it resonates with our highest good of uniqueness and wholehearted individuality. Thank you kindly for my tender transparency and authentic expression during these moments. Please tune me into the frequency of your heart feelings so that I may sense the clues and cues needed to accurately interpret this amazingly phenomenal big picture as it connects us to our 6 degrees of story, community closeness, and divine timing. Thank you again, my love team. The Coach Mad Hatter's Underland University and Radio Coaching Conclave is now in session. Upon our agenda for today, we are dealing with self. Capital S, capital E, capital L, capital F, which stands for Sacred and or Sankofa Energy Life Force. I have a few General Assembly announcements and core reminders we're going to run through before we get started. We're going to pick up where we left off in installation day 4, but in a more lighthearted manner. Yesterday's session was heavy, and I tried to keep the tone balanced, but listening to it again, realized that it was heavy. Oh man, it was heavy. So if you have returned, and we are, yeah, if you return to day 5 installation, welcome back. It's good to have you with us. Announcement number 1 is regarding the CMHU's rundown review for our first self-story study summit and our conclave coaching certification concord pilot 1. Special invitations have already gone out via handwritten note cards to those within the DC, Maryland, and Virginia areas to invite them to serve as our review board as well as our commemorative pilot squad. Interestingly enough, I've heard back from no one. And yes, the note cards were brief, but the remarkable part about it is, inside the note card, I directed everyone to the blog as well as the YouTube page, which has countless information and content and samples of topic trajectories and all sorts of stuff. So if you happen to be one of the ones that I sent out a note card to and you showed up to see what's going on, what we're really talking about, to see if it fits, I'm glad you're here. I'm really glad if you're here with the true understanding of what it means to journey by heart and have a firm comprehension around the all-inclusive being, meaning one that is in respect of its logic as well as its intuition, that has um, never been in or is getting out of the habit of ignoring its emotional intelligence, especially as it being a primary human intelligence, and that it ought to be given just as much study and contemplation as anything logical or scientific. The summits, the concords, any of the audio series that we post on YouTube, or audio and video series that we will host on YouTube, as well as the primary content that will be discussed during pop-ups or one-on-one coaching conclaves. They all have, and yeah, all of them, every single last one of them um, is viewed through a lens called the divine trifecta, which is me, myself, and I. Pilot number one deals with the middle part, which is myself. Remember, it's capital S, capital E, capital L, capital F. And so we take a journey into a different view of how the self can be portrayed, how it can be researched and developed, and how it can be embraced through different paradigms and perceptions, and adjacent to this thing we call astro artistry. One sun sign, moon sign, and ascending sign equates to the me, myself, and I. My Capricorn sun is me. My Virgo moon is myself. My Virgo ascending is my I am. From yesterday's installment, I made mention of the poem to the virgins, the beginning of it. Gather ye rosebuds while ye may. That speaks to my moon sign and my rising sign, my ascending, arising. Maybe I was meant to say that. I'm going to write that down. So my A alike, my A rising. Interesting. Hmm. I am to gather my rosebuds while I may. Mean that there is certain time capsules, certain portals, certain energetic portals that will accommodate my efforts and I am to know when I ought to be gathering and harvesting. And so the time is now, and I am to honor my talents, my gifts, and my intuition, as well as discover my comforts within my constant adjustments, and to remember that my butterfly effective efforts plus my serendipitous intentions equals golden chaos and omni organized noise. Within yesterday's installment, day 4, um, I'll say in favor of the weightiness of yesterday's energy, I had to go back and attempt to pull a better understanding to that rant. Well, it was a semi rant because I wasn't like really like at odds with anything per se. That was the day before. So the day before yesterday is when it was really bad. And so yesterday was pretty much just contending with the residue. Today is much, much better. And I'm glad I didn't ignore it. I made mention yesterday about the estates, but I didn't really truly unpack it. And it was all in conjunction to the forceful effort that's about to come upon us with regards to voting and our blindness to what's really going on, to that which we are expected to vote on. I also made mention about the legendary mindsets that have infused, contoured, refined, edited, organized, and remastered this thing we call politics. There's something called the five estates of the realm. And so the first estate is the clergy, the second estate is nobility, the third estate is the commoners, the fourth estate is the media, the press, aka civic journalist, and the newly added estate is the quote unquote web journalists, meaning all those that populate the virtual world adjacent to the real, or the printed press, I should say, and adjacent to the fourth estate. Which strike me as very, 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 very interesting is that whom I would call a urban journalist is yet another estate, in my opinion. They stand alone. They are a sovereignty of their own, the real authentic urban journalists, because they do not fit within the mainstream lens of how they view life. And I'll even go a bit further and say that there is a seventh estate, and that will be a combination of astro artisans, muse like musicians, virtuoso vocabularists, poetic justices, cosmic crafters. And even though I know that it was not by chance that I um, unfolded it where it linked up to be the seventh estate, and if you've been hanging in this hang suite, you know that I got a thing for the number seven. It made me smile to connect the two. So only in the Coach Mad Hatter's world is estates 6 and 7 in existence. Also, we will be tapping into the mythos of Pandora's box as we go through this journey by heart. And so as the mythology goes, Zeus got mad, furious at Prometheus for giving the humans fire, aka the control over their Kundalini energy, aka the full charge of the sexual abilities needed to to recreate, to procreate. Because before then, humans had to go through some type of ritual or initiation to be able to recreate, because they were essentially, um, yeah, essentially um, pulling celestial source, portions of celestial source to be embodied within human flesh to be in this realm. And so you had to ask permission. You had there was permission granted to um, be in this realm in flesh. In order for that to take place, in order for human conception to take place, permission through the gods had to be granted. But when Prometheus gave that charge to the human where they could procreate as they deemed fit, Zeus became angry. And so, as the story goes, he banished Prometheus to suffer this agonizing ordeal every day. So, the start of the day, and I don't know what kind of bird it is. It's escaping me right now, but this big ass bird would come and eat his liver, and like really just like eat him while he was tied to these boulders. And at night, the big ass bird would go away, his wounds would heal for the next day to start it all over again. And he dealt with that for a while, man. Like he suffered greatly, forgiving the humans the charge of their own Kundalini power, the charge of their own sexual energy. So, as the story goes, while Prometheus was hemmed up, his brother um, was given the gift of a wife. And of course, yes, the wife was Pandora. Pandora was made by the gods. And so she had a little bit of each god that was part of the pantheon, and it made her irresistible. And I giggle because sometimes I wonder about, because I'm still researching and developing this thing. So I wonder how much of it plays into our tug of war with the allure and the seductive power of women. Because Aphrodite had quite a bit of influence in the creation of Pandora. So all of the gods of the pantheon contributed a little bit of what made up the sum of Pandora. And so Zeus sent Pandora down there with this box, but he gave her the instruction not to open it. Well, lo and behold, she opens it because curiosity got the best of her and she wanted to know what was inside this box. All of the dreadful energies that humans were susceptible to was in the box: sorrow, agony, hunger, um, disease, jealousy, distrust, you name it. And there are several YouTube clips. As a matter of fact, I think I may, let me write that down. I think I will attach my most favorite one to this inside the keynote so that you'll, let's see. Yeah, so I will attach that. Of course, because this story is such ancient mythos, several versions have been offered up. What's misleading is that it's always offered up as fact. I go according to how it feels. And so the version that I just told you is the version that resonates with me. When I ask, and I often do take a poll, and I'll just out of nowhere ask someone, tell me what you know about Pandora and her box. Different versions, but it always still lands on her curiosity got the best of it, got the best of her, and she's the reason why mankind suffers. Now I'll give you that, but there's still a little bit more to that, that if we would just stick with it long enough and unpack it and sit with it, understand it, it may bring us some revelation. Because Zeus knew she was gonna open that box. Come on. Like if that be the case, come on. He put it all in there. He knew it was going to get unleashed at some point. He knew that. He knew that when they created her, that there was a certain level of curiosity that they embedded in her being that was going to take root and mature. They knew this. So they knew that all of that was going to be unleashed. Now, the very last quintessential element to be released out of the box was hope. And what's amazing about hope is that it is such a under the forest bed type of power. And it has the power to dispel each and every individual element that preceded it. Everyone always fails to mention that hope was one of the elements that come from out of Pandora's box. Any and everything that we set out to do has hope attached to it, whether we want to give hope its just due or not. And hope is a divine feminine energy. Because we never know how anything is going to turn out. I don't care how much planning you do. I don't even really truly have no stock in how much storytelling that fortune telling that you will invest in, mainly because there is this thing called chance and a certain amount of autonomy into the invisible world and its autonomous power. That's why I always say that it's free will and determinism. It's not versus, it's not either or. It's always a collaboration between the invisible and the visible. So we're going to unpack um, several connectivities to my notions around Pandora's box as we journey through these 90 days by heart. And we're going to start with this. And my notions, I like to call them Pandora's box briefings. And so here's our briefing number one. Start low at the crown chakra. Take it slow, releasing by facing. Proceed with cautious but renewable optimism. And take it one determined step at a time. Hope was the last quintessential energy to be released from the box. The last shall be first. Anything done in haste will waste. Proceeding with cautious but renewable optimism allows us to pinpoint those determined steps, which will automatically be charged to this thing called a butterfly effect. And while doing so, please pace your patience. And I know that goes into the haste make waste, but I just needed to say it that way. And so our last item on the agenda, or yeah, as far as our General Assembly announcements, is that we are making the arrangements to have our first pop-up, and it will be in the Washington, D.C. area. I actually have my heart set on a particular location, but I'm waiting to hear back from them. Once these arrangements begin to solidify, I will make the announcements and begin sending out the official invitations for you to come and join us. We will be talking about or dipping into, tuning into, tapping into, turning on all of the things that have been discussed on this channel since it started, which hasn't been very long. This channel is the sum of my courage into my leveling up and beginning to share all of the information that I've been gathering over the last 10 years, as well as to give foundation to this thing that we call Coach Mad Hattery, an astro artisan. So, astro artisan is all things astrological, especially as it pertains to one's zodiac, one's primary zodiac signs and placements, sun sign, moon sign, ascending sign, sometimes the Venus sign, definitely the Chiron sign, definitely the, hang on a minute, definitely because I am, hang on, trying to get my notebook, because I am, a sincere ambassador of Capricorn Nation. So more than likely, all things Capricorn, all things Saturn. Um, Diving into certain house placements. More than likely, at the start of this thing, I will be the sample because I am the one whom I've studied the most. And I believe that the reason why it has taken me so long to begin the channel and to start populating it with my commentary is because I didn't want to be the example. I did not want to be the example because of my wounds around my identity. And I was slow to want to be projected for judgment. But even with that being the case and me working through that and finding my way beyond that has been truly an immaculate conception. So our theme for the Day 5 installation comes through a conversation that I had with Prime yesterday when he asked me a very significant question. And it was so significant to the point where it was the last thing that I was pondering last night and the first thing that I was pondering when I got up this morning and carried over into my morning meditation. And I'll paraphrase, but the question was, what's the secret to why you do what it is that you do, the way that you do it? I had to pull out my book, Start with Why by Simon Sinek. And inside the preface, the first page of the preface, I'm going to read this to bring style to this installation. We're going to dress this installation also, and I'll say the special thing about this installation as well is that it has two themes. And so the second theme is Once Upon a Dream. Okay? So theme number one is the question, what's the secret to why you do what it is you do the way that you do it? And theme number two is Once Upon a Dream. Okay, so the power of why. When I first discovered this thing called the why, it came at a time in my life when I needed it. It wasn't an academic or intellectual pursuit. I had fallen out of love with my work and found myself in a very dark place. There was nothing wrong with the quality of my work or my job per se. It was the enjoyment I had for the work that I'd lost. But all superficial, excuse me, by all superficial measurements, I should have been happy. I had made a good living, worked with great clients. The problem was I didn't feel it. I was no longer fulfilled by my work, and I needed to find a way to rekindle my passion. The discovery of why completely changed my view of the world, and discovering my own why restored my passion to a degree multiple times greater than at any other time in my life. It was such a simple, powerful, and actionable idea that I shared it with my friends. That's what we do when we find something of value. We share it with the people we love. Inspired, my friends started making big life changes. In turn, they invited me to share this idea with their friends, the people they loved. And so the idea started to spread. That is the first component to the answer to Prime's question. And it's amazing because when he first asked it, I paused for a minute. For one, I had never had anyone ask me that before. Like, what's the secret to, why you do it the way that you do it? And his tone was of, I could tell it was of sincere curiosity. Now, if it had anything else attached to it, there was no way for me to know that because it didn't feel that way. But even with that being so, I hesitated and I'm like, well, that's why it's called secret. I'm not getting ready to give you my secret. But then I had to think about the advice that I had been giving myself for the last 90 days. We are being expected to think differently, respond differently, love differently, approach differently. But my answer was still basically of the shorter version. All of my hot pursuits for the last 10 years has been me trying so desperately to find myself, as well as vet and validate the information that I did discover so that it could truly solidify the confirmation that I belong here. This has been such a very long, heavy, excruciating, solo journey. Much was sacrificed. And those that don't know my personal, like my ins and out of my day, could easily assume that I am this social butterfly that I'm 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 mixing and I'm mingling. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Got all these friends and this, that, and the third. Contrary, my friend. This has been a concentrated effort to figure out why I'm here. And honestly, if the planets could speak on my behalf, they will tell you. Set in front of them countless hours, putting in all sorts of inquiry, and on some occasions, that, yeah, demanding that they give me the evidence that confirms what I need to be here for. In some instances, it was flat out, yeah, you need to convince me. Understanding my Chiron and Aries brought home a whole slew, a cornucopia of answers. But I'll say that I've only been able to research and develop through this information just the last 90 days. But having this information now within my purview, it is now absorbed. It's now naturally part of my purview. And it took a concentrated effort of 90 days and me due diligently getting in front of it for me to understand well enough to magically connect the dots. I also had to be patient with my wounds. And that's not to say that the wounds are gone. That's not even to say that I'm done facing them. But this small but highly significant quality within my natal chart, the placement on my natal chessboard by which Chiron stands, answers so many baffling, debilitating inquiries. AstroButterfly.com has amongst the greatest commentary, in my opinion, around Chiron and Aries, aka the identity wound. that I've come across. I will definitely attach it to the keynote so that you can take a look at it. Now, Chiron in Aries is from my natal chart. Pull your natal chart if you haven't already. Find out Chiron's placement and begin your journey to research and development. It will definitely enrich your journey by heart over the next 90 days, even though it isn't 90 days anymore. Um, you know what? I didn't do a countdown. I didn't do it. Oh, well, it's only 5. Good grief, there. I told you I'm bad with numbers. Your 85 days. Your 85 days journey by heart. So, we're going to go over the notes that I captured, and it's not a lot of notes. Um, I was almost, um, well, not almost, but I was sure. I was prepared that the majority of this installation would be due to the General Assembly announcements. So, unlatching sabotaging points of views, internal points of views. Chiron and Aries, aka the identity wound, chiefly involves the greatest wounds of all of the wounds of identity. Chiron deals with identity and the wounding around one's identity. It deals with those moments when we feel like we don't have a right to exist. And what's quite amazing about this is that I was feeling all of this before I had content and context. What was missing was my understanding that it was all by divine timing and divine intervention and just a turnkey of perception granted me a flood of awareness that I could begin to utilize and use as a solve, use as a remedy. With all things within this dimension and beyond, things take time, especially when we're healing from the inside out. It takes time. So Chiron will be in Aries, or it is in Aries now. It entered Aries February 18th, 2019, which is my oldest son's birthday. It was a major moment to read that. And it will stay in Aries until 2027. And so on astrobutterfly.com it says Chiron's transits are very intense and life-changing. The archetypal characteristic of Chiron is the wounded healer, and its glyph is the key. Its hieroglyph, its symbol, is the key. And according to ancient mythology, Chiron is the key to the zodiac. It hangs out mostly um, in the zodiac of Aries and Pisces, which is the first. Aries is the first zodiac, and Pisces is the last. And it almost serves as the turnkey of reciprocity. It also orbits between Saturn and Uranus, which was also significant for me because of Saturn, my Capricorn placement, but also because of Uranus being Saturn's dad. So it was like orbiting between my mom and my granddad. to begin pondering that association um, brings on an entirely different quality of enlightenment. And so it orbiting between Saturn and Uranus links the personal experiences to the collective experience. Mythologically speaking, Chiron is a Centaurus. And I think when I spoke about Chiron before in one of my other videos, I called him a sentient. I still believe he's a sentient, but definitely half God, half horse. Also within the mythology, it doesn't really say if it's a guy or a girl. And I think that that's pretty cool because all depending on the story, it takes on the third dimensional gender specifics. But when it's spoke about in just its quintessential essence, its quintessential qualities, it's androgynous, which means it can take on the energy of the feminine or the masculine. And I thought that that was pretty cool because in our world today, we get so stuck up and hung up on gender that it truly stops our flow of understanding. So Chiron's role is to break, but it's also to put back together different forms of existence. And that's definitely what has happened with me. It transmutes itself. So Chiron's maturation cycle, it's from the beginning, the wounded healer, and then it transmutes into the shaman, and then it transmutes into the alchemist. And so its motto is breaking everything only to find a higher, more superior order when putting it back together. Now I'm going to read just a little bit from astrobutterfly.com um, to give a more solidified view of my Chiron in Aries. So Chiron in Aries is where you feel you don't have the right to be yourself. Aries is concerned exactly with the affirmation of the self, but Chiron will challenge this affirmation of the self with the purpose of finding a higher order. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It's all about the individual, about impulse, about passion, instinct, the me first attitude. Aries is where we assert ourselves, where we go for what we want, where we draw borders to express our uniqueness. Aries is the very first sprout to emerge from the soil in the spring, choosing life, choosing to get out there into the world and express itself. Chiron is where we feel wounded, ashamed, broken, and inadequate. Chiron will challenge our Aries expression of self, expression of individuality. Chiron in Aries is about the greatest wounds of all, the wound of identity. The wound of identity is where we feel we don't have the right to exist. This is the most painful wound of all because it's the most difficult to grasp. We're all born with a wound of identity. When we are babies, when we are babies, we hardly have an identity. We have the result of the genetic makeup of our parents. As we grow up, If our self expression is encouraged, we slowly develop our unique identity. But the process is not always smooth. Our parents may, rightfully so, see us as an extension of themselves and may have difficulties in acknowledging that we are a different human being. It's not their fault. They do this because they want to protect us. But trying to force the child to become anything else but what they were born to be is incredibly damaging to the sense of the child's self. Stifling a child's individuality is more dangerous on long term than neglect and even violence. People who have the most challenging forms of psychosis usually come from upbringings where they were not allowed to be themselves, to express their unique identity. And I'll just make this swift disclosure that I just bumped into this site yesterday. Prime asking me that question yesterday sent me on a whirlwind of gathering answers. Because he followed up, because when I said, wow, I've never had anybody ask me that before, he responded, he followed up with, they're gonna ask you that and even more. As you begin to put yourself out there, you will have to contend with certain inquiries. There's a lot more out there regarding Chiron and Aries and how um, we are to begin dealing with our identity woundings, our identity wounds. And it amazes me at the low volume of content that's being, or commentary that's being created around our quote unquote identity wounds. But maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it is up to us to take on this particular specialty within self studies. Maybe it is a quiet, very intimate journey to research and develop, or path within this journey to research and develop. So I'll leave you with this homework. And remember, any homework that is given is in conjunction to the heart. Heart is where the home is. We are dealing with the decluttering and the recultivating of the heart chakra so that that energy may be welcomed in. It may be positively attracted in. Energetic reciprocity is what we're aiming for. If you have your birth chart on hand, find out where your Chiron placement is, and then do a simple search and see how much of the instant data that you can get a hold of. Establish you a notebook or journal and begin pulling out. You have to sift through the content, okay? Everything that you read will not apply specifically to you, but you have to pace your patience and sift through the information, and all that grabs your attention, write it in your journal. Once you're done sifting through all of it, then within your journal, you'll have that information that specifically pertains to you. And that will be the information that will be the turnkey to your better understanding of self. Now we're going deeper. Remember that we are dealing in specialty curriculum. So it's beyond your likes and your dislikes. It's even beyond your preconceived notions that you already know you. We're starting at the root and we're the slowly moving ourselves up the chakra stations. When we get to the heart, we'll be home. But even so, we're going to venture out and go way beyond the crown chakra into the effervescence of the ethos. With that said, because the doggy is now unleashed, so I'm believing that that is my cue to wrap it up. And so I hope this installation has been delightful and informative. And until next time, I wish you well.